around that time is when I started thinking like, okay, this is my game plan in life. I want to be a rapper that can survive off of rapping.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Empire Podcast interviews, where we like to interview everyone from pastors to actors, rappers to trappers, and everybody in between. And today we have a great guest. But before we get into it, you know the game. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to build it up, so support us out here. But let's get to the juice and the good stuff, right? We're going to talk to this man who's a professor, author, poet, husband, MC, Adam Martinez, also known as Adam.etal. Welcome to the podcast, Adam.
Thank you for having me, man.
Man, glad to have you, bro. Glad to have you. How you been?
I've been doing well. Just smack in the middle of the fall semester, 2022.
Gotcha.
And like I told you earlier, like, teaching an overload class is. I commend the students that are like, oh yeah, I'm taking 5 classes, and they're working full time, and some of them have kids, and
okay.
So it's like I get inspired by them. So
got you.
Got to keep pushing through it.
Like, how are they doing this?
Yeah, exactly.
Got you. It's like, I want to sleep. I want to go night.
Yes, I want to hang out with my dog.
That part. And he literally means his dog, folks. Woof. Not his homies, his dog.
Yep.
Shout out to the dog. What's the dog name?
Fernando, aka Fern.
Shout out to Fern.
Yeah.
Shout out to Fern. One of the things that I noticed, Adam, the biggest change that I've seen you from last time we talked to you is the hair growth. What made you decide to grow your hair out?
Part of it was just the lockdown laziness.
Okay.
But it also, and I'm still working through what it means, to have long hair, to have braids, to it ties into ethnicity and like being Chicano and trying to feel some connection to something beyond like the American identity, or like the United States American identity. You know what I mean?
Got you.
I just after the lockdown, and we were able to go back and get haircuts and everything. I never really like when I would do like a classic comb over type of look, like that fresh dapper look for people with straight hair. It just felt like kind of like colonial, and I never really had thought about that until just like definitely the lockdown allowed a lot of us, I feel like, to just reckon with a lot of things because we were just in lockdown. Like,
Facts.
You know what I mean? And so like that became a part of it. Like even doing, and I don't know how accurate the DNA tests are, but my wife and I did the 23andMe's and finding out how much percentage of European you are, or whatever the case may be, and learning, again, don't know how accurate these are, but learning that I have like 60 odd % of indigenous blood, it really made me think more about the notions of like how I want to represent myself
to the world.
And one of those things is, like I said, the haircut. Like I don't know, if the power of braids is it feels it just feels different. It feels like, especially going into like spaces of higher learning and ideas of masculinity, what it means to look professional, I like playing with that, and it makes me feel validated if I get accepted in those spaces. And even if I don't, I walked out of that room and I still had my braids, and
at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, and I got to go home with that. And like, just like, even shouts out to Amanda, who Keep Your Crown Right in San Bernardino.
Okay.
She is my crown healer.
Cool.
Like real shit. Like
Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, like I've never had the experience that I have when I go to her shop in terms of taking care of my hair, as I get older, I start feeling my hair thinning out and I start seeing my grays and everything. And I want to take care of my body more, and one part of that is the crown.
The hair, yeah.
The hair. And she just schools me, she's into the curandera stuff and she has a maestra that she learns the practices from.
Okay.
And so, she'll just hit me with game of like how and why. The how and why, beyond like, oh, I want to braid my hair because it looks aesthetically cool or it like generically connects me to indigeneity. But just explaining what braids across a lot of cultures means, like the strength in the hair and saying prayers and affirmations while you're doing it.
Hair is alive.
Hair is alive. Hair is sacred. Yeah. And so like that's something that I really got put onto simply because of, I wasn't able to get a haircut in the pandemic, in the quarantine. And then when I could, I didn't really want to go back to the standard, like what a man like me in a professional setting should maybe look like.
Yeah.
So what am I going to do? And then that's when, like I said, Amanda, keep your crown right, putting me on to that knowledge.
Wow. Super. Shout out to you, Amanda.
Yes.
What's interesting is that in Jamaica and a lot of Caribbean cultures, like they got persecuted, captured, and their locks were cut off, right? Because the same, connection between long hair, spirituality, life, sun, ray, power.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because my friend who's Korean, he told me that when the powers of colonialism came, a lot of the sacred people had long hair, the shamans, et cetera, et cetera. So what they would do is they would capture them and cut their hair. So there's definitely something sacred and powerful about hair. And there's also got to be a reason, you guys can probably answer for us, why hair has to be cut. It's like, why don't you get a new fresh haircut?
Yeah.
Why don't you get your hair cut?
Yeah.
You don't look as cute when your hair is not cut.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, like, who made that programming? And so, but there's definitely, in my opinion, I got to say my opinion.
Right.
I also believe there's power in hair.
Yeah.
And not saying that people who don't have hair don't have power, but there is power in having hair and what it brings. And some people say that it actually holds like knowledge and DNA and stuff like that. People, but you guys can decide about that, but I'm open to believing that. I believe that the body is more complex than we ever knew or know about. And someone mentioned something interesting. He was like, do you think about digesting your food, or does your body already know what to do in order to digest the food? So it's just like using examples of how complex the body is in its cycle. Like you don't have to think, hey, I need to digest, or hey, I need to breathe right now. No, your body's already so complex that it has a system, I guess you could say, in place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Right.
And hair is part of that. Even like you're saying, what you eat relates to like how well your hair's taken care of to a certain degree, I'm sure.
100%.
Yeah.
Can you imagine eating a whole bunch of toxic food and expecting your body to grow and your hair to fully grow?
Yeah.
Or even what you wash your hair with.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Even because now we're getting into
it's fine. We're here.
I have very oily scalp.
Okay.
So like
that's good.
It is good, but I would be like, maybe that's a notion too that I'm like, oh, greasy hair is not an attractive, becoming thing. That's like synonymous with being dirty or something. Yeah. So I would wash my hair. People who really know about taking care of hair, you're gonna be like, I would wash my hair every day. Like, not rinse it. I would wash it with soap and condition it, and like it would just be super dry.
Which is the opposite of what you want your hair to be.
Yeah. So,
light bulb. And I think I had this conversation with Councilman Damon Alexander. Shout out to you. I think all it really is in the end of the day is just lack of knowledge. We just don't know.
Yep.
And so it all takes time for us to know. As long as we keep our eyes, ears, and mouth, and soul and heart open, then we get to learn new things.
Love it.
Right?
Yeah.
But Adam, for people who don't know who you are and what you do, can you please tell all of us who you are and what you do, man?
Yes. So I am Adam Daniel Martinez on my birth certificate. But through self-actualization and everything and finding my identity as an artist, I am, like you said, I'm a poet, a rapper, a songwriter, I guess, in general. I am an educator. And I go now by Adam.etal. Some people may have heard of that. I feel like that sounds like an old head flex or something.
It's okay, old head flex.
I'll rephrase
No,
it.
it's okay.
I spent about 14 years rapping and putting out music as Faim Kills. And then again, right around the pandemic, even a little bit before that, my soul was kind of like shifting, like pulling at me in a different way, you know? And so Adam.etal, so the et al is Latin for essentially and everyone else.
Okay.
So like when you're doing a research essay, or if you're doing research, let's say you, me, and two of our other friends are putting the research project together.
Okay.
But let's say you are you're like leading us, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're all contributing, but you're leading us. And someone wants to cite our research, they're gonna say Miles et al. And everybody else that contributed. So and that's like MLA format, APA format, and so that's a nod to what I teach. I teach English at a community college in the Empire, and so what Adam et al. The name change was about like synthesizing myself more.
Okay.
I felt like I compartmentalized myself a lot because I was insecure. Like I was insecure what my rapper friends would think of me for being like kind of a square academic. Yeah. And then on the flip side, I would be concerned with what my colleagues in academia would think about me rapping. Yeah. And then like being a poet, like I'm very informed by rap, you know, like
period.
You know what I'm saying? And so like if I get in certain circles of poets, if I don't know certain poets, they're going to look at me a certain way, like, oh, you're not really a poet because you don't really follow the culture like that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You don't know who this is?
Yeah. And so to me, what Adam et al. Stands for is me trying to be more authentically me in any room that I walk into. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I just feel like with Faim Kills, I was doing a lot of... I spent a lot of time, like once I was developing a space in the scene where people were paying attention, I think I was trying to not be me. I was putting on a front for in the name of like irony and satire. Okay. And that wouldn't always land.
Can you explain that a little bit deeper?
Yeah. So you see some of the old relics of Faim Kills. I actually don't have the EP that I would be talking about here, but there's one called Tasty Waves. Okay. And there's a song on there called Total Babe. And it was very hypersexual, you know? Okay. But back then my logic was like, I'm going to say these things as a means of like putting a mirror up. Like if you feel like, if you're rolling your eyes when you hear me say these things, or you don't like that I'm saying these things, then hopefully you can see that around you, whether it's yourself or like your homies that are acting such a way. But it didn't really pan out like that. It really just made that, it just normalized that kind of language and behavior. Okay. But I feel like it also normalizes it in my own life as a man for that period of time.
Can you explain a little bit for that?
I was out there being a thought. Okay. And I wasn't...
Which is okay.
Which is okay. We all have to go through what we have to go through to get to where we're going to get. Yeah. but at the same time, like, maybe I didn't need to. Maybe I just needed to find like other coping tools.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
Which for me was like therapy.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
I didn't start therapy until maybe like halfway into my rapping career.
Okay.
And then that's when things slowly started to shift and me starting to feel like this fame thing has been cool. And I mean, I met a lot of cool people and I got to do a lot of cool things with it. Yeah. But I think it's time to turn the page.
To shift.
New chapter. Yeah.
Gotcha. So Adam, can you give us a quick synopsis of an origin story? Basically, how you grew up, which led you to the point where we are now in this beautiful home. Thank you, by the way, for allowing us to do this.
Thank you for coming through.
Man.
Okay, let's see. I tend to be long-winded, but I'm going to try.
Hey, we'll do the best we can.
Okay. So I grew up in San Bernardino, California.
Okay.
I want to say I'm like the third generation in San Bernardino.
Gotcha. Can we get a street? Is that cool? Can we get a street?
Yeah. I grew up on 7th Street and Mount Vernon on the west side of San Bernardino.
Now you guys know.
By the Santa Fe Whistle, by Meat Loss Cafe. I went to Ramona Alessandra Elementary School.
Okay.
And so being, like I said, like third gen Chicano, who doesn't necessarily look Chicano.
Yeah.
Like all through school, I didn't get bullied too much, but if I did get bullied, they were using some incorrect like racial slurs. Like people would think I was Asian, Middle Eastern.
Okay.
People have thought I'm black. Like I've gotten everything.
Cool.
Except Mexican.
Okay.
Oftentimes.
That's awesome.
So I say that to say that.
So I guess you can't really get offended, I guess, in that like for sure.
Exactly. Like, I guess I say that to say like I never really felt connected to my own culture.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
And I think that's what drew me to hip hop. It just made me feel at home somehow.
Yeah.
So that's the one piece, but then the piece, so that's what drew me in as a fan, right?
Okay.
That it just made me feel at home. But then what kind of flipped the switch for me to become a rapper was I've been rapping since I was 11 years old.
Okay.
I'm in my mid-30s right now.
Got you. So you grew up in San Bernardino, right? I'm assuming like elementary, you're getting picked on, right? Mm-hmm. So how did you find hip hop and how did you fall in love with hip hop?
I found hip hop on the radio
Okay.
and on MTV.
Okay.
You know, it was one of those things. Like I remember hearing De La Soul, Me, Myself, and I.
Okay.
And that was like, that made me feel happy.
Got you.
I think
Oh man.
right?
The happy days with hip hop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just me, myself. That's what it felt like.
Yep.
That's one of the, I think that I could probably point to that song as like the first, like my first entryway.
Because you could relate.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so the other thing is I grew up in a very tumultuous home of domestic violence.
Okay.
And so the way that I would escape that, I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with my parents. Spent like half of my early childhood growing up in a bedroom in like grandpa's house and then grandma's house and then uncle's house. And then they finally scraped enough money for a 1-bedroom apartment. And then, you know, this whole time I would see the domestic situations
happening. Yeah.
A lot of it, mostly emotional kind of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Verbal kind of things. But nonetheless, to be a child seeing that is not ideal at all.
Yeah.
And so
confusing.
A way for me to escape that is I would go into our bathroom with, you know, the boom boxes from like the 90s that had the CD player on top and the one single cassette on the bottom.
Okay.
And my cousin taught me how to take a blank tape and loop. So I had Timbaland and Magoo's Welcome to Our World CD.
Okay.
And I would just find the empty spaces and I would loop it, and I would have my headphones on while they were arguing, and from there I would start writing raps and trying to record to it. And so
what age is this around? 11, okay.
Yeah. And so, I was doing that all through middle school, and I got better at that technique. And then as technology evolves, by the end of high school, I was putting out like cassette tapes, mixtapes, just sharing it with my super close circle of friends. I was still too...
Dude, it's intimate showing those things, man. Like it's like allowing people into your most vulnerable spaces.
Yeah. And so like I went to high school with Noah James.
Okay. Shout out to Noah. We're gonna get you on next.
Yeah, shouts out to Noah, man. That's my bro. And like I was too scared to jump in the ciphers.
Okay, they used to have ciphers at the school.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Can you explain to people who may not know what a cipher is?
Yeah, so you just this is just at school, but it could be anywhere, right? Like you just get a group of people, and sometimes there's an actual beat, but sometimes it's just like spit something.
Okay.
And you're just going, and that cipher might turn into a battle.
Okay.
Where you're going at each other, and I was always too shy for that. I remember one time I went, like kind of nudged myself into the cipher in the parking lot at Cajon High School. And this is when me and Noah were still there together. I was like a junior, he was a senior.
Okay.
And this was actually the first time we met. I don't think I've ever told this story. I'm right there.
Right here.
He's ciphering, and then there's a moment of empty space, and he looks at me and he's like, say something, little homie, and I couldn't do it, man.
Oh, okay,
I couldn't do it.
The anxiety kicked in?
But like that's where and then from there we worked on like a hip hop theater play together and stuff like that.
You and Noah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I always considered myself more of a writer. I think maybe there's still something blocking me from allowing me to be like just like comfortable with improvisation.
Okay.
So I feel like I cannot freestyle. Maybe that's just me in my head.
I think you're overthinking it.
Yeah, I'm the overthinker for sure. Let me jump further, because I know we're trying to get it.
No, you're good. This is a very good story. So you and Noah James created the hip hop theater.
Yeah. Well, there was the theater instructor. She created. She came up with the idea to do a play.
Okay.
That was hip hop informed.
Super cool.
Yeah, and so I told her about like, well, there's kids that cipher out there, and so then I told her about Noah, and then I helped like write some of the script with like the characters rapping and stuff like that. That's like as comfortable as I was back then. Like
gotcha.
I could do the ghostwriting, but I was still too afraid to perform.
What was the name of the play?
I think it was called "And the Beat Goes On."
Okay.
Pretty sure it was called "And the Beat Goes On."
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Just to clarify, guys, for the cipher, let's say there's a circle of people, right? And they're not talking about each other, just talking about anything else except for each other. And it just naturally just goes around and around like a circle. Just a little heads up, clarify.
Yeah. And so from there, then I shift to college.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And we can talk about college.
Okay.
But I feel like I don't know. I'm not so sure that this is still the case for this generation, like Gen Z, but I know for a millennial I graduated in 2004.
Okay.
Like,
from high school or college?
From high school.
Okay.
Like college was, it was kind of like, well, that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a little different now.
Yeah, I think,
Right? I mean,
the digital age has changed everything.
Yeah. It's still like encouraged, I think, but not to the same degree where it's like, well, that's what you do next. If you don't do that, you're somehow a failure or something like that.
I think YouTube University has definitely changed the outlook.
Yeah.
And I think the only thing that people would probably go for is like trades, or that's like the smart thing.
Trades.
Please continue. Yeah.
So college, I went to UCR for my undergrad.
Okay.
And that's
University of Riverside, correct?
Yes, University of Riverside. Shouts out to Highlanders. that's really where Faim Kills came into his own.
Okay.
I was in the dorm and I bought, do you remember the label Def Jux?
No.
So
I don't know.
they were like a major independent rap label. They had like LP, it was LP's label from Run the Jewels.
Okay.
So it was LP.
Wow.
He had Merce on there, Aesop Rock, Blueprint, Illogic,
Okay.
Blockhead, all those kind of like New York. And so I bought this DVD, and with the DVD came a Ableton demo because they had a little thing like, oh, we give you the stems and you could do your own remix.
Dope.
So I was like,
dope.
I popped it in my Toshiba laptop because Apple was Macs weren't like reigning supreme yet. So it was a Toshiba laptop. And I learned how to record. That was a huge step for me because, like I said, I come from the era where I was still recording on a cassette.
Yep.
And even like I recorded like one demo CD in high school.
Give a shout out to that.
Hey,
the cassette. Oh yeah.
The cassette.
Yeah.
The cassette.
Bam.
Yeah, that was huge for me because I had recorded like one demo in high school on CD, but I didn't have the technology. I had to go to somebody's house to do that.
Facts.
So being able to do that and make my own music in my dorm, like that's kind of all I did. I would go to class and I would just be writing and recording at that time it was still instrumentals for me because I didn't know any producers yet. I wasn't tapped into the scene yet.
Okay.
But it's coming together. It's coming together right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. We're here.
So right around I was putting together little EPs. And I was slowly expanding like who I was giving them to. You know, first it would be my close homies that I was still down with from like the Dino. Mm-hmm. And then it was like, all right, let me burn these CDs for my dorm mates. And then our dorm across the way, let me give them some. And so by senior year of UCR, I lived in a house with the same guys that I lived in the dorms with. We rented a house and we threw a graduation party and they said, it's time.
You have no choice.
You have no choice. So my first performance ever was a house party at the house that I was renting out with the college dudes that I was with. And that really gave me the confidence, like, okay, that wasn't so bad. That wasn't so bad.
Okay.
And so from there, I reconnected with Noah.
Wow. Small world.
Yeah.
How many years later is this? Like 10 years almost?
No, like 4 years maybe.
Okay.
It's still like a whole, like a high school generation.
Yeah, facts.
And so I reconnected with Noah James because I had an internship with Warner Records. They had like this college campus intern thing at the time where they'd send you a bunch of promo materials and you figure out how to do promo on your campus. And so I reached out to him through MySpace probably. And I was like, hey, I'm trying to throw this Talib Kweli like listening party.
Dope.
And him and Lisa were doing like building blocks. This was before Common Ground. And so I met up with them. And we didn't even end up doing the listening party. But
really?
Yeah. But he was like, yo, and I was like, yeah, I rap still. And he's like, oh, for sure. Like, come through to the next one and like do the open mic. So I started doing that. I just started coming out like because I had that confidence now.
Yeah.
And so I started coming out, and then after a while, I was getting attention from my peers and Jinx from Black Cloud Music, which is an independent label out here. He approached me like, are you down to be part of Black Cloud? And I was. And so then from, like 2009 maybe up until like 2013, I was part of that.
Dope.
And so we were in the scene and we're helping the scene grow.
The IE scene?
The IE rap scene. I would just say music scene because I feel like Brick to Your Face really, it was predominantly hip hop, but they had everything, bands would come through and things like that. And so from there, you know, so my plan by the time I was doing the music with Black Cloud, and I was in a band also, like a indie rock band called Spirit Fangs. Shout out to Spirit Fangs. Defunct now, no longer. But through grad school, I was doing all of that. But it was in grad school where I really honed the poetry.
Okay.
Because I did the creative writing with the emphasis on poetry. Because
that was your major.
So okay. I did like a dual. I did like English, like literature, and then the creative writing with the emphasis on poetry.
Gotcha.
Because it just all made sense to me because I love words, I love rapping, and I love that intersection between poetry and rapping.
Gotcha. And I just like to think rap's poetry over beats anyway.
Yeah, for sure. And so around that time is when I started thinking like, okay, this is my game plan in life. I want to be a rapper that can survive off of rapping.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
And I want to get to a point where I can be like a Ninth Wonder or a Bun B who's teaching at a college. That was my vision. Like, I'm going to get to this certain level. And then because of the strength of that name, colleges are going to be interested in hiring me. Mm-hmm. It didn't necessarily work out like that.
It's a cool plan, though.
It was a cool plan, though, right? Yeah. I think I unintentionally. Well, that sounds like an oxymoron. I don't know if you could unintentionally manifest, but
hey, we're here.
I was speaking something that was coming on my path without realizing it.
Okay.
You know?
Yes, sir.
And so, you know, I spent a little time in LA. I was doing closed captioning for like movies and TV shows.
Cool. In LA?
In LA.
Dope.
And this before pandemic. So I'm sure now you could do that remotely. But at the time, it's like LA is kind of where you had to be because all the studios are out there.
How did you get that connection to do closed caption?
I honestly, right when I was about to graduate from grad school, I knew I had to start getting some income because music wasn't necessarily providing enough. And so I was just looking. I was just looking on. Honestly, I was looking on Craigslist. Mm-hmm. I was looking on like LinkedIn. I was just looking everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was just like, whatever's gonna get me right money wise, I'm gonna do that for now. So like, I tried some publishing companies, and then the closed captioning one that they hit me back.
Dope.
And so I was doing that. It was very mundane, but also I guess it allowed me space to like work on my creative stuff. You know what I mean?
Facts.
But you know, LA's not a far drive from here, but I love the IE.
Got you. An hour and a half, I think people would say it's kind of far.
Yeah? You think?
Hour and a half drive? What do you guys think? Hour and a half drive? Okay.
To me, it yeah, I feel it.
To watch a movie one way.
You could. But yeah, I love the IE, you know, and I wanted to be back doing something here.
Gotcha.
Whatever that might be. And so what happened was I didn't really have a plan, but I knew I wanted to be back in the area. And so as I was making that transition, I was doing some couch surfing.
Okay. Okay.
Because I had quit. I quit. I probably could have just stayed and then did the back and forth.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, I want to work in the IE.
Got you. Work and live.
Yeah.
Work, live, and play.
Yeah. Yeah. Work, live, and play.
Yeah. Shout out to Helen Tran.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
At this time, one of my homies from grad school, who is actually also from Dino, but I didn't meet him until grad school.
Okay.
In Orange, at Chapman. He was adjuncting.
Okay.
And he just approached me like, hey, how come you're not doing this? Like, I think you would do well at this because like you rap on stage, so you already know how to like command an audience.
Okay.
You've taken grad school courses and you've taken some courses about teaching, and I also did like an internship where we got to teach poetry to some high school students. So he's like, I think you could do this. Why don't you apply at this school? and just see what happens. I'll put in a word for you. So those connections.
Recommendation, yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, networking is everything.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, I'll do it. So I put my name. So for adjuncting, which is, for adjunct professors, it's like the substitute. It's not necessarily a substitute teacher of higher education, but it's part-time. It's part-time.
Yeah.
In Southern California, we call ourselves freeway flyers.
Because you're going across all these freeways?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you just teach a class, freeway to the next one.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of love for adjuncts. It's sad the way that the institutions, treat adjuncts on the whole.
Because they're basically with the same responsibilities as a teacher, but not the benefits of being a full-time.
Yep, and not the job security. So I put my app for the adjunct pool, and I kind of left it there, and then I was doing whatever part-time work I could do. Like I worked for the CAPS program through the YMCA for a while.
Gotcha. What's CAPS program?
The CAPS program, I forget what it stands for, but you go to I think elementary schools and middle schools. I'm not sure if they have CAPS in high school. I don't think they do. But you're doing after school program things with the students.
Okay.
So art stuff, physical activities, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that was cool. And I think that was also going in the educational direction.
100%. 100%.
So I finally get the call.
For the adjunct.
For the adjunct.
Okay.
Come through for an interview. I did the interview. I got the gig. And I immediately was like, oh yeah, this feels right.
Okay.
This feels right.
Like hand in glove?
Yes. Just like you were saying earlier, hand in glove.
Yep.
And the homie was right. Of course I was nervous on the days leading up to it, and because it's a new transition in life, you're going to be a little nervous, but as soon as I got in front for the first time, I really was prepared through all those years of rapping on stage in random spaces to random people and trying to win them over.
Facts.
That's already solid. From here, okay, let me just figure out a little more how to lesson plan and how to build curriculum that speaks to the students that I'm working with here, not just picking stuff because I like it, but at my campus as an adjunct, I was fortunate enough to take a lot of workshops that helped me understand pedagogy and all that type of stuff. So it was a free education, So I did that, and then probably by the end of the first year, I was like, this is what I want to do, but I want it solid. The adjunct is cool right now, but I need that security and I need those benefits.
That part. I need that medical, dental.
Yeah. And so after that, I said, let me do this for a couple years to make sure. Let me just make sure.
Smart.
And I can still spend time doing music as much as I can. You know what I mean? And so
it was like you're married to music and you're dating teaching.
Yeah. But then I started to equally fall in love with the teaching because I was figuring out little ways to also incorporate my love for hip hop, whether it's something as simple as all right, we're gonna do a journal right now. Let me throw on some Travis Scott or something. And it's just small ways of letting them know, I don't know, it's a fine line of have you seen Mean Girls?
I have not seen it. I've seen clips of it.
Okay, so
gotcha.
Amy Poehler, she's a mom in that, right? And there's this scene where she's like, I'm not like other moms. I'm the cool mom. And clearly she's not, And so I always had that in my head when I'm being in that professor mode. There's that fine line of saying hey gang, let's rap. I'm the cool professor. But I don't want to be like that. But also I want to be authentic and open and from the jump, I was very honest with my students. Hey, I make music outside of this. Don't think that you have to just be one thing because you're in school for this degree, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's
probably mind blowing to them.
I think it is because no one told me that.
Yeah.
Not even in high school, no one told me that.
Yeah.
You got to be on one track minded type of thing. And I don't know if it's like that now. Maybe it's a little different.
I probably think it's probably still like that. People are not that transparent in what they do,
Yeah.
Probably because, no disrespect, that's probably all they do.
Doo-doo.
I know. I think the same thing. We all do. But that's probably all they do. You know, we have multiple doo-doos.
Yeah.
You know, so, but
That's real.
Yeah. And I think, and no disrespect, I do, I think everybody is multifaceted. It's just how open is that individual to showing that to you. Cause they might be like, I'm in school and this is just my professional life. I'm just going to share that with you. But I might like to salsa dance and be in eating competitions on the side. But I want to keep that separate from my work.
And I respect that. Because there is that whole privacy thing. I respect that. But the way that I try to be authentic with my students, it has informed, like how I said, like making the shift from Faim Kills to Adam.etal, because I do want to try and step into wherever I'm at, just transparent. Like, yeah, I'm an educator, but I'll still put on a very excellent performance, even in my mid-30s.
Yeah. Age ain't nothing, bro. Get that shit out of here.
Yeah, thank you. Shouts out to Griselda.
Man, shout out. You and Tristan both said the same thing about being old in your 30s. You guys need to stop it.
I know, no.
Stop it.
You're right.
Stop it.
I know. I still feel, honestly, I still feel young. I feel like I'm a young soul.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just the societal stuff gets in my head sometimes.
There it is. There's that colonialism again.
For real.
It's our brainwashing all of us.
Truly. But yeah, like, so then once I start getting deeper into teaching, that starts informing and shaping the way I'm approaching my music. I'm feeling more intentional, but even interrogating that intention. Cause like how I said earlier, like, I was making like basically misogynistic music in the name of irony.
Gotcha.
And I thought that was enough.
Gotcha.
You know, but now I'm interrogating, well, why am I doing that? You know,
going deeper.
Yeah, going deeper with it. And then of course you have the poetry, you know, like I spent the majority of my time in graduate school writing a publishable thesis. That's part of what most MFA programs are going to have you do. Anybody that's thinking about or currently in that position. And so this book right here, Remyth the Postmodernist Ritual, this was actually my thesis from graduate school. And it took me about 10 years for it to get published.
Gotcha. Can you give us a little detail, a little synopsis of what it's about or what's inside of it?
Yeah, for sure. So it's a collection of poems. It's called Remyth, a Postmodernist Ritual. And so the concept of remyth is taking poetry as a tool for remythologizing narratives in your life.
Okay.
So and for me in particular, it had a lot to do with popular culture and relics of popular culture. In my early mid-20s, I had like my first huge heartbreak, right? Like huge. Like my entire adult life up to that point was with this one person.
Okay.
And it really shakes your foundation. Not just like, I miss this person and the ego concept of that, like this person doesn't want me, but it's also like, well, who am I outside of that? I didn't know.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that happens to a lot of people. You kind of lose yourself in that, or you can, not everyone does. And hopefully you learn from that and you keep a healthy self, you know, you tend to yourself even when you're in relationships.
Facts.
And so it dealt a lot with like, you know, thinking about particular songs or movies or like I got one in here that deals with the trauma of like the domestic abuse I witnessed, and it's called Yellow Bug. Because a yellow Volkswagen Bug was symbolic of something and it was a trigger, not for me necessarily, but in that scenario.
Gotcha.
And so it was about writing poetry to reclaim power over the memories that are connected to these pop culture remnants, and like ultimately healing from that. And so like I think also this was my first form of therapy without realizing it, because after I wrote it, I went into really deep depression.
Okay.
And I think it's because I was dealing with things that I had never approached before.
Wow.
Yeah, never addressed before.
Okay.
And so yeah, like, and right around after I wrote that, and then I got my my job in LA doing the closed captioning, that's the first time I had like benefits from a job.
Wow.
So I did therapy for the first time out there.
Okay.
And then when I didn't have that job, I was on like Medicaid, Medi-Cal.
Yeah, something like that.
And I had an amazing therapist in Riverside for some time through that. And so like I was on and off of therapy, you know, since maybe 28 maybe to now.
2008? 2018?
That was 2015.
Okay, 2015.
Yeah, so it's been some time.
Okay.
Now I'm with the therapist I've been with pretty much since I moved here to the city of Redlands.
Okay.
Which is like maybe 4 years.
Okay.
And yeah, so I wrote it and I felt like I had outgrown it after a certain time, right? But thinking about it, I always approach my poetry like I'm learning different things from different avenues, right?
Yeah.
Like I approach the submitting my poetry the same way I approach submitting my single or my music video to blogs.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I learned things from rapping that I could apply to this industry.
Yeah.
It's just finding who you're supposed to send it to, essentially, and kind of, finagling with the words a little bit. But this had different iterations between the time I wrote it and defended it and got my degree to when it actually won the Hillary Gravendyke Prize in 2019.
Gotcha. Shout out. Can you tell us a little bit more about the prize? What that is?
Yeah. So the prize was getting published. I was the regional winner. So they had a national and a regional winner. Inlandia Institute, which is a publishing company in the Inland Empire. And so I had put like a zine version of like selections of this together with, I think, this album here, Thrashed Out, because I had written this album while I was writing the thesis. So they really had a lot of narrative themes going on together. And then I did an audiobook version of it.
Cool.
Again, with not the whole thing, but just selections that I put out under Faim Kills on Spotify and stuff like that. And at that point, I was like, okay, I think this is what it was meant to do for me. Like, this is where I was meant to take it. And now I'm ready to write a new project. And hopefully that's going to be the one that gets published. But in I think it was 2019, like early 2019 or maybe late 2018. Yeah. I was on poetsandwriters.org. So any poets and writers out there that are trying to figure out like, okay, I got some work now. How do I get it published? Poetsandwriters.org is a great database to find all types of presses, publishing companies that you can see what kind of contests they have, like submissions year round, all that type of stuff.
Gotcha.
I was up there and I saw the Inlandia Institute Hillary Gravendyke Prize. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to shoot it out.
Why not?
And if I don't get it, I don't get it. I'll move on to the next project.
Facts.
And I sent it New Year's Eve, 2019.
Gotcha. Messed up. He's already effed up already.
Yeah. No. It was before that.
Okay.
The celebration was a little sweeter that night.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Celebration, bitches.
I was actually almost about to head out to the function.
Okay.
When I got the call.
Wow.
And they told me that I won it, and I was like, it's surreal, you know?
Man. Congrats for sure.
Thank you, man. Thank you. And so and that was a new space to be in, like working with a publisher and an editor and graphic designers, and like having a team that like I didn't have to do too much other than like figure out ways to promote and like try and book myself some interviews or some places to do readings. But they really, it felt, I don't want to say like validating, but that's kind of the best word I could use. It felt validating.
Definitely.
And so I've learned a lot even from that. And now that I can apply that to what I'm doing musically.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of like, oh, how can I throw a even better listening party based on the reading, the launch party that I had, which was really great with their help. But you know, now I know some of the things that I can do. So it's just like learning from each aspect and
super cool.
Yeah.
And applying them.
Yeah. And so that's how we're here now. I don't know.
Super dope.
I don't know if that.
Super dope. Well, if people want to get the Remyth book, how can they get that?
Yeah. So obviously, I would always love if you bought it directly from the author. www.Adam.etal.soy.
Can you spell that out for them?
Yeah, ADAMETAL.SOY.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, definitely want to get into the Adam et al. Stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, for people who have never heard your music, right? How would you define your sound?
Ooh. I gotta be honest, and I don't know because it's still coming to me.
Okay.
But I will say that the first two song collections that I have put out as Adam et al. Are tender and aggressive at the same time.
Okay.
Like, and the reason I say I don't know yet is because there's still parts of me musically that I am learning to incorporate that I was too afraid to show as Faim Kills. Like, for example, like incorporating more like folk songwriting into the fold.
Okay. Can you give us a little example of what you mean?
Yeah. So, like, I guess just really what I'm influenced by and because when I was doing Faim Kills, that was like the main project, but I was also doing a project that I would put out on Bandcamp and I wouldn't really promote it. And that was all like acoustic driven, just singer-songwriter, like no rapping.
Gotcha, yeah.
Never the twain shall meet type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But with Adam et al., I'm trying to find ways to blend them authentically without it sounding like just kind of corny, like corporate, like let's fuse these things together.
Gotcha.
Like, you know, like for example, like I feel like Little Peep was doing something interesting and then he passed away and then like the Machine said, oh, Machine Gun Kelly, let's have him do this type of thing.
Let's create this character.
Yeah. And so
that's how I felt with Ja Rule and Tupac.
Ooh.
When I first heard Ja Rule, I was like, man, this looks like a watered down Tupac.
Yeah, he even wore the bandana
when he first came out.
Wow.
When he first came out,
yeah.
the J-Lo video.
A New York.
No, I like a watered down version of Tupac.
Yeah, but I'm saying like a New York version because he's from New York. But,
facts, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no. That incidentally, the first concert I paid for was Ja Rule at the Cal State San Bernardino Arena. Freshman year of high school.
Nice. How was it?
It was dope.
Gotcha.
It was dope.
Yeah, no knock, but you know.
Yeah. I feel you. Yeah, so I mean, there are some artists right now that are inhabiting the space that I've had in my head for a long time.
Yes.
But I didn't know that that's what it was like. That's what it would sound like. And I'm sure my version of that won't sound like them either. But like Bartice Strange,
okay,
Gene Dawson, they're doing some very interesting things that are like just kind of like an amalgamation of everything. And like on the one hand, being the age I am, you know, if we're talking in terms of rap music, some people might be like in an old head mentality where I'm at my age, and want to have like a purist mindset. And part of me is there. Like, I don't want to lose the essence of like rapping.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
But I also, I don't know. I think it's interesting what some of these cats are doing.
Facts.
And so finding that authentic space, like right now, the latest release I have is called "I'm Having a Good Time Now."
Okay.
And it came out on my birthday in July. And a lot of the beats are by my cousin Dope Kid Danny in Minnesota. Shouts out Dope Kid.
Shout out to you, Dope Kid.
I've been working with Dope Kid since 2013, something like that.
Gotcha.
And so he I guess the way to explain the sound for someone who hasn't heard me is probably just best of like talking about influences, right? Like I know that his beats are influenced by like West Coast, like kind of funky slap type of stuff.
Okay.
But also he's very in tune with like the trap stuff. So it's like a hybridization of that. He has a very IE sound, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess people need to know what the IE artists sound like, and so if they know, then they know.
Right.
Yeah.
If you know, kind of thing. Like I feel like he comes from a similar place of like Oh Gosh Leotis and like his cousin Captain, who I like my first project on Black Cloud Music was with Captain.
Okay. Okay.
And so just there's like, it is really a if you know thing with IE beat makers or producers, because I feel like it's very hard to pinpoint and describe them. There's something quirky and offbeat in an endearing way.
Interesting.
About like every IE producer from a particular time frame, I feel like.
Gotcha.
So that definitely informs what I do on it,
Yeah, the music definitely, for sure.
Yeah, and I feel like even where we're at now with rap, like it's almost like you can't just be a rapper anymore. There's exceptions to that rule, of course, the Griseldas of the world. But it feels like now you have to be incorporating melodies and singing and things like that. And so like I was naturally starting to do that just because like I love pop music.
Yeah.
And so I bring both of those things into the fold. But it really depends for me, like on the beat and what that's asking me to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like, what do they say? The only thing that's constant is change. And so to like expect your artists to be the same as what they were 10 years, like I don't expect Nas to sound the same, or Jay-Z or Kanye. Like, like no one ever sounds the same. And, one of the things that I heard is that you're going to lose artists. You're going to lose fans, but you're also going to gain fans. But as long as you're true to yourself, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The real ones will stay.
Yeah, I feel that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
And I think that's going back to the name change. I feel like I wasn't being true to myself.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it does feel like starting from square one a little bit, but it feels right.
Gotcha.
It feels right.
Yeah, and that's what's important, and I was going to ask this later, but I'm going to ask this now. And basically, starting from the scratch and the bottom is basically like the death of Faim Kills.
Yes.
And the rebirth of Adam.etal.
1000%.
Right?
Yes.
And so as the phoenix rises out of the ashes, creates the new life, new form, right? And what I was going to ask, and I think you basically already answered it, was, are they two different people? And would you define them and look at them as two different people?
Like Faim Kills and Adam.etal?
Yes.
For sure. Faim Kills became there's a line that I have in a song on the on the Tasty Waves EP from 2013. Lethargic, Lothario, always on a lot of dro.
Okay.
And so that's sort of the archetype that I started to frame Faim Kills around. Like this like apathetic
drugged out
womanizer that's like high and drunk all the time. And life started to imitate art around then for me. I was like drunk or high a lot. Like I wouldn't say that I had like a problem with like alcoholism, even though that does run in my family for sure. But I was absolutely coping by like just disengaging with things by numbing myself, you know?
Yep.
And then even the same thing, like I mentioned, like going through a huge breakup, instead of like tending to myself for a point in that time, I was trying to just be with different people and like in some ways like try and replicate what that was, you know, and that just wasn't going to work. It was not sustainable. Faim Kills wasn't sustainable at the end of the day. And the difference with Faim Kills and Adam.etal is, again, like the recognition of, like you said earlier, the multifaceted nature of who I am, and accepting all of those different parts of me as important parts of me. Like, hey, you want to be friends with me or whatever the case might be, like, I need you to accept me for all of these things.
Yeah.
You know?
For who I am.
Yeah, just for who I am. Like, don't make me feel like I need to put this part of me away.
Gotcha.
That's the thing.
I love it.
You don't have, like, we could be friends and you might rock with my poetry, but not necessarily my music. Or you might appreciate the fact that I'm an educator, but you don't really concern yourself with the art. Okay. And that's fine.
Facts.
But if you're, you know, bringing negative energy to a point where like you're making me feel like I shouldn't embrace those things, or you don't want to hear me talk about those things, then that's where I need to be authentic to myself.
Yeah. And I guess separate those conversations or those people from those conversations.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There's a line that DMX says on Drink Champs, and it's beautiful, which is like, you know, he's like, you know, if they're a snake, they're a snake. If they're whatever, they're whatever. I'm paraphrasing terribly. But, you know, you just basically take people how they are. Yeah. You just take them how they are. Yeah. Don't try to change. It's like, okay, that's who you are. Then I will treat you accordingly. I won't try to change you. I know who you are, and I'll treat you and approach myself with you accordingly.
Yes, I remember seeing that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
R.I.P. to the great Darkman X.
Yep.
So what I thought was cool was that the only person that killed Faim Kills was Adam.etal.
Yeah.
So Adam.etal killed Faim Kills.
Yes.
I just love that alliteration, you know.
You got it.
You know, so, you know, we're talking about hip hop, folks. If you guys are completely lost, which I hope you're not, like the video, by the way. Subscribe to the channel. Hope you guys are enjoying this. Comment down below, everything. What does hip hop mean to you?
It means the world to me. Like, especially as I guess as culture as a whole is shifting in the United States in terms of thinking about cultures and thinking about positionality. And, you know, we might summarize it in the terms of political buzzwords like being woke or you know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
I think being like some of the things that I've learned through being an educator, you know, like student learning, meeting students where they are, embracing the lives that students have outside of the classroom, embracing their cultures, bringing their culture into the classroom. Like, it's really made me reconsider my positionality. And so knowing that I'm a Chicano in hip hop culture, which is the Black culture, right? Like, especially in 2020, with everything that happened in 2020 with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Black Lives Matter, the organization, which is a whole other thing now at this point. But it really made me, and I hope it made a lot of people consider their positionality, especially if you are a practitioner in hip hop, whether you're rapping, whether you're listening, fashion, whatever. If you claim to love hip hop culture, then what we can infer from that is that you love Black people. And so are you acting accordingly? And so it made me understand more, like, my love for hip hop culture isn't just that I loved beats. And, you know, growing up in the 90s, I tried everything. I tried graffiti, I tried breakdancing, I tried DJing. Like, I wasn't good at anything but rap.
People don't know about the elements, so you're throwing them off right now.
All right.
But I caught it though. It's okay.
I know you caught it.
Go, keep going.
So you see, hip hop has pillars. I think maybe for the audience, we should explain the difference between hip hop and rap.
Sure, hit them right here.
So rapping is one of the pillars, right? Hip hop is a way of life. It's a philosophy. Even like a KRS is like, it's a religion, you know, like it informs the way that people operate. And so like, to me, hip hop, I guess I can't say it gave me identity, but it helped me find my identity. And who were the practitioners that did that? It was Black voices. And so for me to acknowledge that, now I have a responsibility as like a rapper that is Chicano to write with intention, to if I'm doing visuals, to do that with intention, to uplift my Black constituents, you know, to know when to shut up, when to not take up space.
Okay.
You know, to be okay with that sometimes. And so like, I think being in academia and being at the community college that I'm at, I can't speak for any other college other than the one that I work for. I feel very fortunate that they have an open mind to allow us to show how hip hop as a culture can and should exist in those spaces.
Okay.
And so one way that I've been able to do that is I'm one of the co-founders of the Hip Hop Studies Summit at Chaffey College.
Okay.
And so what that is a 2 to 3 day event that typically happens in February. We're going to be on our 4th year this coming February.
Congrats.
Thank you. And it's just, like I said, like it's bringing the culture into the academic space, which I think that's starting to happen more, right? Like I mentioned, like Ninth Wonder, or there's like a Nas fellowship at Harvard. Bun B's teaching at Rice University. There's classes popping up all over the nation, like teaching Kanye, teaching Beyonce, like all of that. Like little things are happening, but there needs to be more, right? Because then there's that value. Like you as the higher institution needs to not only see the value, but share it with your students, because they already see the value, or a lot of them do. If they identify with hip hop, they already see that. But I feel like they've always separated that too, and it doesn't allow people to be authentic. Like this is what, like I have my headphones on and I'm listening to, you know, Lil Baby or something.
Yeah. But
when I go in the classroom, I got to turn that off, and I got to like step outside of that part of me and be in this more like,
listen to Shakespeare.
Exactly. Exactly. And luckily at the community college level, it's like there's a Shakespeare class, but it's not that like. But yeah, the higher up you go in academia, the more white it is, and you're Eurocentric and everything. And so, what our aim is with the summit is that we're not only just expressing the value of hip hop in its different forms, whether it's rapping, whether it's spoken word or visual artists. Yeah. It's bringing in practitioners from the local level, from the national level. It's doing workshops with students so that they can try out different elements. It's doing artist talk back, where we have some of the artists that are maybe like leading the workshops, or they're going to perform at the showcase. The students can ask questions. And we're also trying to bridge the academic pathways. Like, look, there is a route you can take to be in this industry, in this particular industry, whether that's like fashion, whether that's the music industry.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's that's what hip hop means to me. That it can and should be a culture that's shared, that's studied, that's explored, not just at like a hip hop festival.
Facts. It's interesting because I had a conversation with shout out to Tarek T about hip hop, and he went to the Kendrick show that recently was in Ontario, and he was saying that Kendrick's like got a line say I don't do it for the gram, I do it for culture, and he was like he sees like different races in the community. I mean in the concert, and he's like, do they understand what he's saying? Do they really understand what he's saying?
Right.
Just to relate to what you were saying, right? Because I think where you're coming from, to have a self-realization and then to explore takes a certain mindset, conscious mindset, to be like, okay, yeah, this is an art form that was created by Black Americans, later expanded out to other cultures, right? Et cetera, et cetera. So I think that takes a certain mind, and open spirit to even dive into that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess another question, a part of that is, do you think it's sympathy, empathy, or is it just like true understanding and like, I guess, respect? I guess would probably be the third. What would you think is for you?
For me personally?
Yeah.
I think I would like to think that it's true respect.
Okay.
Because I can't necessarily sympathize with everything that a Black person would struggle with, of that goes into what has built hip hop, right? I guess I could empathize, but I think the baseline is the respect thing, and I think being an educator is really what got me there.
Okay.
Because I really had to, like I said, like I'm part of the Umoja faculty committee on my campus. And so Umoja is a statewide program at community colleges, I think also at 4 years.
Okay.
That is meant to serve the Black and African diasporic students at those campuses.
Okay.
To give them a space to like the resources, giving space to just dialogue and commune with one another. And so like learning the practices, like it's called being emojified for the faculty and staff. Yeah. Learning about that and kind of like going back to the idea of like student centered, I think to authentically do that, you have to just respect the very idea that like the world doesn't revolve around me and my culture and my learning style and the like the readings that I did in school. Like I have to go out and seek knowledge from other cultures.
Okay.
And so I feel like for me, that's where it comes from, a place of respect in that same way. Like I went back and applied that to the idea of hip hop. Like for example, going all the way back to like De La Soul, Me, Myself, and I being the first song that I really fell in love with from rap. Like going beyond that, like, well, what is it about this? Like, what's the sample? Like there's a whole tradition like that they're sampling from, and there's a whole musical lineage.
Facts. Facts.
And so that like, I think it just comes down to like, are you passive or are you active in your consumption?
Stance. Yeah. Okay.
In your consumption and your stance. Yeah. But definitely in like, yeah, you can say you like this song or this artist. Yeah. But
that's it.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of passive,
Gotcha. And I think that's honestly, that's the majority of people, in my opinion.
It's true.
People just like, oh, it's just music. I just listen to it. Cause like one of my big things is like, I'll go to these spaces or these, San Diego, these nice, affluent areas, which just means like white areas or whatever.
Yeah.
And like hip hop will be playing or jazz music will be playing. And I'm just like, okay, so it's like, okay, I don't see really Black people or people of color here. But the only way they're in is through the sound system. The only way they're allowed into the room is through the sound system.
Yeah.
If you understand what I'm saying.
That's deep, yeah.
Right? But just to move on from that, which I Okay, I'll say it because it's on my mind. I like how your perspective of it's from respect, but just maybe I'm thinking from a negative space, and hopefully I'm not. But I think to look at things from multiple aspects is important. I think some people might just be like, they can't do it on their own, so let's just put something together for them so they can do it. More like a sympathy, or where it's coming from. Talking about the Umoja fight type of thing.
Oh, right.
Yes, like they can't do it on their own, so I feel sorry for them, so let's just build something for them so they can come and do it. Right? Yeah. That's a negative aspect, I guess you can say, of looking at it, but I think I just wanted to speak on it because the way you're coming from it's positive, but I can't guarantee everyone's mindset is the same as yours. Not only do I think it's important for not only Black communities to talk amongst one another, there's probably the least that talk amongst they're probably the least that get together and talk amongst each other. But I think it's important that not only do they talk about their issues and stuff, but I think it's also great to come together with other cultures and just speak together as a community and talk about, hey, this is what's bothering me. So that way it's not just bubbles of separate people trying to get separate things, but if we come together as a community, great things can happen. Yeah. You know what I mean? Better things can happen. The old saying, divide and conquer, it will forever reign true.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna move past that a little bit. And so, you talked about jumping back and forth between editor, learning how to get published, and things crossing over, right? So what is your thoughts on being signed or trying to get signed to like a professional label or maybe an indie label? I know you said you were signed as Faim Kills before, but how about now as Adam.etal and possibly for like a more professional, higher level?
That's an interesting. Yeah, that's really. I don't know. Like, I don't know if being signed. I don't know how much value it has anymore because, like, DistroKid and all of these kinds of Bandcamp has sort of democratized self-publishing music. Like even as an indie label, like it was essentially self-publishing. We were just moving like a unit and like, you know what I mean? Pitching in our resources and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I don't really see myself interested in like seeking out signing to anybody. I like the freedom of, especially, because being an educator also, like I'm splitting my time between all these things.
Facts.
So I do like the freedom of like being able to make music when I can instead of having to.
Okay.
And I feel like,
okay.
I mean, you hear about deals that are kind of sweet though, that like there's not really a timeline, but from what I would imagine, for the most part, you are going to have deadlines that you have to make, and
it's a business.
It's a business, yeah. Exactly. And so I'm cool with like essentially self-publishing my music, and whatever comes of that, then I can have that conversation with myself.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Let's hypothetically speaking, say someone's like, hey, Adam, I like your style, bro. Like, I want to sign you. I have X amount. I have the check right here.
What? Like, am I going to do it?
Yeah. Because you said you're not going to actively look for it, but say someone finds you just like your previous label found you.
Right.
What does Adam.etal do at that point?
See, I think there's so many factors to that.
I know.
Because like being part of the scene and like tapping into like the industry type of stuff, and like we mentioned earlier, like kind of the DMX quote, right? Like seeing people for who they are.
Yeah.
Like it would really depend on the relationship I had with that person. If it's a random person, I can't say yes to that.
Okay.
Because I don't know them, and like that just sounds like you don't really know me. You're just, you like what you hear, but like that's one layer of what I might be able to contribute to.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So,
but would you be open to like having lunches with them? Okay.
Yes, I definitely would. I would be open for sure. Sure. And the same goes with the writing too.
Okay.
You know, I'm a little more, like what I self-publish from a writing perspective is like zines and stuff like that.
Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, zines are like DIY magazines essentially, and they're kind of rooted in like punk culture, in like the 80s, 70s, but like really 80s and 90s. 90s is when there was like a pretty big scene. Like there was like the Riot Girl scene, which was like feminist punk, and so they were very like, they're probably like this is just high grade printer paper. I think I didn't print this myself. Yeah, but they would probably be even more DIY than this, right? Like Xerox paper, black and white, and with a zine, it can really be about whatever you want it to be. It's really a means of like expressing identity or taking political action. Since it's made so cheaply, like you can mass produce more to hand out to people, right?
Facts.
And so that's zines is kind of what I like to self-publish for, like my writing. I would be more interested in talking to publishers for books from here on out.
You hear that, guys?
Yeah. Any publishers out there?
Facts.
But yeah, I think for the music too, like self-publishing, it's relatively simple. Like you can get on DistroKid and upload your stuff, and then that'll go to all the major streaming services. But of course, we know that they pay beans. Even, I forgot what they said, how much Pharrell made off of like Happy or something.
Yeah,
it was like I don't know.
It's sad.
It was just like thousands of dollars compared to the millions of streams it got.
Facts. Disrespectful, basically.
Yeah. So imagine what an indie artist is getting off of, what I mean?
That's the tour money comes in.
Yeah. So that's something that I that's a goal I have is a little touring. Like we were talking about merch earlier, like getting new, like I got like Adam.etal stickers. If you ever come to a show, you're getting a free sticker.
Boom.
And then the books, but like we talked about earlier, like t-shirts and just getting more merch to connect with people is a goal. And
I just had an idea for some merch, but
let's go.
For you.
Yeah.
And it's making me think because of the hair, like beads for the hair. Because you're growing out the hair, Adam.etal beads people can wear, men and female, I guess. That just came to me right now.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Very cool. I might have to take that. So, who I owe royalties to.
Hey, just 10%. I'll just take 10%. So, I appreciate you being really open about talking about depression and stuff like that. I even saw a post with you talking about depression at a show. Can you elaborate a little bit more about, why it's important to talk about it and what made you feel so comfortable to be open about it to the public about it and stuff like that? Can you enlighten us about that, please?
Yeah. I think for me, talking about depression publicly is, we always hear this talking point, right? We need to destigmatize it, which is 1,000% true, because there is still like shame and guilt surrounding feeling bad, feeling depressed. And so I think I still get, like, if I talk about it at a show, I still get a little self-conscious talking about it, but I know I have to push through it because, and this goes back to what you were saying earlier about, like the divide and conquer thing, and like people need to be communal and talk about things. I think this is a facet of what we're talking about here that I didn't really hear anybody talking about it openly when I was growing up. And so I think I want to step up for whoever it counts as community, whoever is at the show, whoever is listening to this podcast. And I think in a certain way, talking about it is kind of like therapy.
100%.
Right? Like whether you're talking with a licensed therapist or if you're talking with your community, it gets a little easier each time, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I think a good thing why you do it is I think a good thing of you doing it also helps people who might also be going through it realize I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm not a freak or whatever. Someone else is going through the same thing, and I think I think that happens to a lot of us in different things where it's like, oh man, I'm the only one going through this, so there must be something wrong with me.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, bro, or nah, brah, nah, lady, nah, man. We're all going through something.
Mm-hmm.
We're all experiencing these type of emotions,
Yeah.
And I know you talked about depression and acceptance, I think was the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Can you go a little bit into that, a little bit about the acceptance part?
Oh man, that's still something that I struggle with many things in my life, but
Which is kind of related to the name.
Yeah.
And the transformation.
Yeah. I think acceptance is really, I think we could even sometimes say that we accept things, but we haven't.
I got you.
Not fully.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that ties into forgiveness too.
Okay.
Like for me, like I've had a lot of issues with my pops.
Okay.
And like there have been many times where I'm like, all right, I forgive you, like to his face. But then we come back around and it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's not all on him. Part of that is me and my reaction and my like stuff that still rises up,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm still learning the acceptance thing. I feel like there's certain things that I have accepted, and then there's certain new things that pop up. Mm-hmm. Like right now, what we were talking about earlier about the old head or like being in your 30s and feeling old, like aging. I'm working through accepting mortality and aging. I've always had like a really bad death anxiety.
Yeah.
And
I think a lot of us poor kids got that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dying young.
Yeah.
Expecting to die before like 21.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so I think there's kind of like I can't believe I'm still here. This don't feel right. Like, or not feel right, but like almost like a like imposter phenomenon.
Okay.
But on a mortal level.
Interesting.
that's
interesting.
Right? But yeah, that's the acceptance that I'm struggling with right now. Like being in my 30s, society telling us for the most part, like specifically with the hip hop art, like, well, you're aging out. You've already aged out.
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't be making music anymore, and trying to accept that is not the reality. That has to be so. Yeah. Right. I think one thing that I am getting better at accepting is like the trauma with my parents.
Okay.
Like accept back to the DMX thing. But maybe not so much in a pushing away way. Because I feel like that's kind of what he was saying, like setting your boundaries in certain ways.
It was like the way I took it was like, okay, let's say this is a snake on the table. Okay, I'm not going to move my arms around it because I know what it is.
Yeah.
But I'll be right here. Mm-hmm. I just know how to act around certain individuals. Yeah. That makes sense. If you have to be around them.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. That's how I took it.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. And so that is kind of to my point, because it's like, well, it's my parents. Even the idea of family, I'm like renegotiating like what, like, and a lot of that comes from my wife being a first generation. She doesn't label herself Chicana, Mexican American.
Gotcha.
Seeing the way that she interprets what a family is or should be, how you should treat your parents, how they should treat you, what boundaries, all of that.
Completely different.
And so trying to accept that difference in and of itself and figure out how to merge those values for if and when we have children.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
shout out to you, wifey.
Yeah, shout out to Leslie Tibroot. And so like, aside from that, just me thinking, like negotiating and accepting, like, these are my parents. These are a man and a woman that were a man and a woman before me.
Yeah.
and they will be a man and woman after me. I mean, technically, they'll if life
Yes.
goes the way it should go,
We understand what you're saying.
more mortally, like that
Yeah.
wouldn't be the case. But
With you.
they, like, I guess after me in the sense that, like, well, you're more or less done raising me.
Yeah,
I'm my
with
own
you.
man now,
Mhm.
and so you're the man and woman that you are now. Like, who are you? I saw some of the bad things you did, and I kind of focused on those for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But the older I get and the more mistakes I make, the
Yeah.
more I'm like, no, I need to accept you as simply the human that you are.
There it is.
And I want to learn about you as the human you are. And I think sometimes I come on a little strong to them in that way, because even the way that they think about our relationship, you're the son, I am the father, I am the mother.
Yeah.
There's boundaries that we don't cross in terms of like what we share with each other,
Gotcha.
how we share it.
Yep.
Sometimes I come a little too strong, and I don't think, in plain terms, maybe they're not ready for that because they're not like they didn't do therapy. They're not. I don't know how much they're thinking about these things.
Yeah.
If they don't want to, or if they just haven't been given the knowledge for it.
Yeah.
Right. And I have to accept that.
You're in different spaces.
And I still have to love them, and they love me. And like, I just have to accept where I can't force a relationship that I think is ideal, you know? And it's taken me a long while. Like I said, I'm still trying to negotiate that.
Yeah. And at least you're trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that even that will shift if I have children. My thought on parenthood will change.
100%. You ask anyone as a parent. Yeah. And, it's, thank you for sharing that, by the way, Adam.
Yeah.
And I even have a chapter in my book here, talks about family is important.
Yeah.
And, not everyone is raised under the Hollywood movie thing of a family, but sometimes we have to take people as human beings and know that they're flawed, right? Because you only have one mother, one father, whether they're in your life or not in your life.
Yeah.
And realize that people make mistakes. They're human. Everyone's trying to figure out the world on their own.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're not in the right place. Maybe they're too young. And then also, majority of people speaking want a family of their own, right? Create their own family. And the importance of having someone that, that is of your blood or your lineage, even your cousin is an important family member to you, right? Family is important.
True.
And so we all come from different places, and I thank you for sharing. And I think, acceptance is definitely easier said than done, but I put effort over anything, because there's some people who just don't try.
Yeah.
And what's the point in that? And sometimes I think people are like, well, why aren't they trying? Well, it's like, hey, if you have the wherewithal to do it, sometimes it's up to you to do it.
Yeah.
And then they'll take a step forward because, what is it? Pride cometh before they fall type of thing. People's pride or something, and can't teach an old dog new tricks. I'm just saying all these euphemisms, right? Sometimes as you get older, you're stuck in your ways. You don't want to move. You don't want to bow.
Yep.
And especially to someone that might be younger than you, like, no. And so, I respect you for making the effort and trying, and never give up, Adam.
Thank you.
You never know. It might show up. Sometimes it might show up when the grandkids show up. They're like, I want to, you notice a lot. I don't have kids yet, but you notice a lot when grandkids come involved. And I've heard so many stories. The grandparents start to be completely different individuals. Not only do the parents change, but the grandparents change, because everything becomes the focus. The child becomes the focus for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everybody changes to make a better life for that child. Right. But things will work out.
I appreciate that.
I'm putting that
I believe
out for
it too.
Yeah. And I think what also is helping you in your life, and this is just my opinion, is you have a beautiful, good wife based off of morals, right? Especially first generation. So I know she comes from some morals, bro. I'm almost certain. I don't know their life, but I'm almost certain that she's raised on some serious morals and ethics. You know what I mean? But back to hip hop. I saw you post something, and I was just like, it just took me back. And I think it was a post of your first hip hop show, and it had Bus Driver and 2Mex on it.
Yeah.
And I was like, people don't know who those two people are, but I grew up knowing about Bus Driver and 2Mex. I even mentioned this with Tangent last time I was on the show with him, that his rhymes kind of sound like, or no, I think someone said that he sounded a little bit like Bus Driver, and he, or the way he kind of like raps. And so I know it was interesting. Something along those lines of the conversation
No,
was.
I can't unhear that. I can totally see that.
You can see the relation.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just want to talk to you about. Can you tell us a little bit about that reminiscence of that show? How long ago it was? Because, man, I want to say I think Bus Driver and 2Max. Let's see, how old am I? At least 18 to 20 years ago for me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. So that show was in 2008, and that was my first like official Fame Kill show. Because remember, I mentioned the first show that I did was like a house party.
Okay.
And then from there, it was just like little house parties here and there. Mm-hmm. But that was my first gig at UCR Barn. I had just graduated that like May or June. And then the homie that worked at, I think, KUCR at the time, she was also running like booking the shows and stuff. She was like, hey, do you want to open?
No.
Like, and at the time, I was big into that scene. Mm-hmm. You know, I was into, like I mentioned earlier, like Def Jugs, Living Legends, Atmosphere.
Oh, you didn't mention those guys.
Yeah, I was all.
Are you wearing an Anacon shirt?
I'm not wearing an Anacon shirt.
It looks like it.
Yeah.
You know Anacon, right?
Oh, you mean this particular shirt?
That particular shirt right there that you're wearing.
Yeah, it does look like Anacon, but no. This is actually Andre 3000 shirt.
Ah, I see.
He designed it. Yeah.
It's one of my, I actually met him on accident.
3000?
Andre 3000.
What?
Want to hear the story?
Yes.
Okay. So my cousin was getting her doctorate in East Coast. Mm-hmm. And I was actually going through a period in life where I was like, should I pursue music anymore? And I was like, God, give me a sign if I should pursue music, because I was going through some crazy shit. And I was like, it'd be funny if I fly over here to NY and I run into Sway, right? And so we're in the airport, me and my mom at the time. No, not at the time, my mom. She's still my mother. Yeah. And we were like laid over for so many hours. And I think I go and do something, and I see this guy with like a bass clarinet on his back. And I'm like, that looks like Andre 3000. So I walk up to him and I'm like, hey, bro, has anyone ever told you look like Andre 3000? And he was like, ah! I was like, no way, dope. And so I think I said a couple things, and then I left, and I was like, Ma, guess what happened? I just ran into Andre 3000. And I was like, but I think I need to go back and like, I need to go back and talk to him. And so I go back, and then I'm walking, and then he's walking towards somebody, and someone's coming down, and it's Sway coming down to come meet Andre.
What?
And so they both meet each other, and I take a picture with both of them, take a selfie with both of them, and I was like, Sway, like I was just talking about if I met you here, and he's like, I never take a flight through this way, but for some reason my flight ended up taking me here, and I had to come through this airport today, and then I was like, yeah, I do this stuff. And he's like, well, do you have like a website? Do you have a thing I can get your music from? And I was like, I don't. He's like, well, be prepared next time. Something along those lines, right?
Yeah.
And then once the people around realized who I was with, then all these girls started showing up and people started showing up. And I was like, oh, well, time to leave, because now everyone can recognize Andre and Sway. Yeah. And so that was my experience with Mr. 3000.
The bass clarinet era.
Yeah.
That's like a Pokemon Go type of thing.
Uh-huh.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. I'm not going to lie, especially because I was like, I asked God, I believe in a higher being, and I was like, like, give me a sign. Like, should I still pursue this stuff? And then I meet like basically my favorite rapper, and then the person that I mentioned I should run into at the same place, same time. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, that's my Andre 3000 story.
That's tight. That's so cool. Mm-hmm. Oh man.
We were talking about your first show.
Oh yeah.
Bus driver.
Yeah. So I was a fan of all of the underground. Mm-hmm. And I got the show, and I'm like, ooh, I'm nervous.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I went backstage, I was so shy. I didn't talk to 2Mex or bus driver.
Got you. Stay in your own corner.
I stayed in my corner.
Yeah.
I killed that shit.
Okay. With confidence, he says it. I love it.
I did because I knew I had to. I was like, I'm opening for these guys, even if they don't watch me. Like, I just have to, because like
bring it.
The way I've always thought about shows, or ideally the way I look at shows when you're doing the shows, like you're all part of the same team because you're all part of the same lineup. Now, I like
that.
Some shows are not so much like that, right? But like at that kind of level, that's what I felt like. Like,
gotcha.
You know, I am the opening act for these. Like, to me, they were already legends. Mm-hmm. I'm the opening act. Like, I can't come whack. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it was cool, like, because at that point I didn't have any producers, so I was doing like these mashups of like indie, like I was rapping over like the band Block Party.
Okay.
And like I had this Portishead mashup thing that I was doing called How to Kill a Dead Man, where like I looped like just 3 different Portishead songs into each other, and I did that. I did my set, and then when Bus Driver played, he also like did some kind of looping with the Portishead song.
Yeah.
And it was just that thing where I was like, oh yeah, like I'm in the right headspace because I'm doing the same thing that he's doing.
Yes.
Like, and so that was super tight. I don't think I even said anything to them after. I was just way too shy. I'm a very introverted person.
Yeah.
But that was dope. What was the larger question from this though?
Basically, it was like, you know, we were basically talking about like the experience, you know, how it goes back so long, and like your thoughts about being back in there. But I believe you answered it well enough.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know, you know, you said that you're not really a big freestyler and stuff like that, but I'm pretty sure, you know, the audience would love it. And if I kicked you a beat, would you be interested in freestyling for us?
Oh man, I will do it.
You will do it?
I will do it.
You hear that, folks?
I don't know if I'll do it good. Well, I say good. I don't care.
Yeah, don't overthink it. I think that's what gets a lot of people who are out rapping, and you know, the geniuses and the creative people want to do as best as they can, you know, but don't overthink it. Let's just have fun.
All right,
go with it. We probably should hit the blunt before we started. Probably would have got them going. But you down?
I'm down.
Freestyle session commence.
Oh, we're gonna beatbox. Hey, check. Tony Yo on the beatbox. I got my feet in some socks and the beat knocks. And we keep producing these heat rocks like it's in some Pyrex. Trying to figure out what line is next. Like, whose line is it anyways? I'm out here improvisational all day, always. I keep it fresh like some oranges that's growing on my trees in the backyard. I go mad hard when I try to freestyle with mad bars. Sometimes I gotta switch it up. Sometimes I feel I ain't enough. But I'm always the best that I can be. Cause I'm all that I can see when I'm in my third eye. And this is like the 3rd time I try to make up some rhymes that don't make sense, but still I commence with the master of ceremony skills that I build, that I keep bringing in the samples. Does he have to pay for that? Cause it's coming from the mouth and he's running laps. He's running laps. He's running laps. I'm doing this like a backflip. I'm mad slick. He got the sample going like his name was Madlib. Who that make me? Maybe on some Freddie Gibbs. I keep giving him steady lip. You better study hard, get with the shit that I'm on. It's that remyth poetry, I'm reading it on the lawn. And I keep going until dawn. And I keep going until dusk. Like Selma Hayek. I'm spicy like the cayenne pepper. I give you the lecture. Eat the beat like I'm Hannibal Lecter. Standing at the lectern, standing at the podium. Like Jeezy, I'm trying to watch my sodium. I gotta say no to them if they looking kind of false. Like a prophet, I keep it on topic. Buy my shirt at Hot Topic. Like I'm in an emo band. Got my hair in braids, this ain't no emo fam. Jump off the ropes like SummerSlam. I keep it hot. I don't do no serial killing like the Son of Sam.
No.
I'm more funny like Dumb and Dumber Man.
Yeah.
And that's the end.
Hey.
Look at this. Antonio got me out here freestyling.
Hey.
That was really off the top.
Hey, of course. That's how we do it.
Like, like if there's one thing that I need to arm myself with, I feel like, is like, as Faim, I had a couple 16s in my back pocket.
Sneaking it.
Sneaking them in. And now I don't really have that. Like, part of me wanted to come with, because I'm sure most of you have not heard my last project. So I was like, I'm going to just come with one of those verses. But I accepted the challenge to just be present in the moment.
Thank you.
And I appreciate it.
Thank you. We all appreciate it.
Yeah.
Definitely. Didn't it feel better too?
It did. It felt better. Like it really, like, you, if you have the kind of fears that I have about improvisation, I think it's actually deep seated. I feel like it's like a lack of control thing.
Okay.
You know, like not knowing where I'm going to take myself frightens me. And so, like, as I'm saying it, I'm like reflecting on the previous line I just said. I'm like, that was corny. That was kind of hot. And I think if you can just accept that, it's an ego thing.
Got you.
It's an ego thing. You don't want to look stupid. You don't want to sound stupid.
I like the last sentence you said, and it goes back to acceptance. Yes. If you can
accepting it.
What you said.
This is where I'm at right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you just accept it, let it be.
Yeah. Full circle.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I like it. I think the place of not knowing is the funnest for me.
Yeah.
You're not knowing. It's like, oh, okay, where are we going? You know, if I say something funny and wacky off the dome, whatever, it happened. Keep going. You know, when I remember some guy I was a piano performance major, and someone asked me, he was like, he's like, how do you perform? Like, how do you do it? He was asked because he had to perform a concert as well.
Yeah.
I was like, just think about like driving. Like, he's like, if you mess up, what happens? I was like, just think about, you're driving, you see a cute girl, you just keep driving. That's how you just do it. Like, okay, I see it. It happened, but I'm driving. I got to focus on driving. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's real.
So that's kind of how I told him about, like, if you mess up playing, just keep going. Mm-hmm. People don't focus on the mess up. They focus on if you focus on the mess up. Mm-hmm. If that makes any sense.
Oh, it does. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause if you let it, it'll stop you in your tracks.
Yeah.
And now that's all we can think about now.
Gotcha. Cause they say people only remember the beginning and the end. How you started and how you end. Yeah. So if you keep going, people are just like, oh, he did mess up, but I forgot about it already. I'm already on this tip. Right. And, we talked about you living in the IE. Obviously we're talking about hip hop. Right. And we had a conversation over the phone we had a conversation talking about, like, Redlands is not too open to hip hop.
No.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because you brought that. It was very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think I was very, I don't want to say spoiled, but I was very fortunate to grow up in the space of common ground.
Okay.
That was in Riverside.
Which is basically a neighboring city.
It's basically a neighboring city. So a little context, Common Ground was a weekly night, Sunday nights, at a bar called the Vibe Bar and Grill, hosted by Brick Your Face, which is Noah James and his partner Lisa J. Mm-hmm. And just having that space to do hip hop things. And like I mentioned earlier, like, bands would come, like, indie bands and stuff like that would also come, but it was predominantly hip hop informed art nights.
Yes.
And so, like, that became like a dojo for people. That's where you would go practice your new, test it out.
Gotcha.
Then you get an actual booking there, and now you're building something with people, and you're building together, and it was obviously like being around Black and brown people. Of course, there's white people and there's other people there, but it's predominantly a space of like Black and brown people. And then living here in Redlands is very old money. It's very conservative. It's very white. The people who own the spaces where, I would even just say youthful activities, like building scenes of any kind of art, are the people who own them are not. They don't, to my estimation, they don't seem interested in providing those spaces for not just hip hop, but any kind of like youthful, rebellious art to be created.
Okay.
And so, like, I've performed a few times in Redlands rapping.
Okay.
Like at the Vault, I had like my cassette tape release party was there, but that's simply because like I knew someone that worked there that was able to say, well, this is going to be like a poetry reading, but then we also snuck in some actual rap performances.
Okay.
Now I haven't
had to sneak in the rap performances.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's no spaces. I mean, there's not even really any venues here. I mean, there are bar venues.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's tough being a non-white person. I can only speak for myself.
Yeah.
Right. It's tough being a non-white person here in the city that is not only not white, but doesn't necessarily adhere to like traditionally white culture.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like there's like, and the funny thing is like there's some bars here where they'll have DJs and they're playing rap, and that's okay.
Yeah. Remember, through the sound systems only.
Yeah. Through the sound systems only. That's real. Yeah. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. But like I said earlier, like, and I grew up in the Dino. I love the Dino. But I could walk my dog. I could walk my dog at night, and I don't really feel too threatened. But I still do. My wife and I still do feel a sense of unwelcoming sometimes. People giving us side eyes while we're walking. People not stopping at the crosswalk for us. Just little things like that. And I could be tripping. Maybe they're just in a hurry and they're doing California stop. But I guess that's another space that I want to think ahead. Like I've been doing music for 14 years. Like, I mean, doing music in the sense that like I'm releasing art out there and I'm doing shows and all the stuff that someone who's pursuing music would do.
Yeah.
Here comes acceptance again.
Let's do it.
I'm an OG in this shit. Like, I call myself probably the lowest key OG in the IE, in the sense that like I'm not really out much at shows. I'm like, because I'm pursuing like multiple things, like rapping and like being an artist in that sense is not at the forefront for me anymore. But that still doesn't take away what I helped build.
Facts.
And I think I need to, in this next phase as Adam.etal, I need to, and I would like to step into those OG shoes that are there for me, and try and figure out how to make Redlands and we've talked about it, like these are conversations that we could start. I feel like maybe people that are around. Are you in Redlands or are you?
I'm in the Dino.
Okay, but you're here enough to
close enough. Yeah.
Like, I feel like those of us who like are around Redlands enough like those conversations aren't happening because I think, well, I can only speak for myself, but I've talked to like Cam Archer about it too. Like we've in a way we've given up on Redlands because it's been so like not very welcoming.
Yeah.
But I feel, and I've had this conversation with Leslie a lot. She's like, you need to, like, you know, like for example, there's a an open mic at the Vault, and I talked about how uncomfortable I felt because I went, and it's like it was all like folk and rock and white, like old white men and stuff like that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with old white men. I'm not trying to say that.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, why aren't there more people rapping, doing spoken word, all of that kind of stuff? Is it because people have given up? Because, like, well, this space isn't really for me. It's not really even welcoming to me. Like, sure, they'll let me sign up, but, like... And so I think that is something that I would like to take on in the future with, of course, not myself, but with others to figure out, like, how can we make this space? Because then I think about all of the black and brown teenagers coming up. Like, they don't have any space to look forward to going here. They're gonna have to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
And that's what, I don't know. For me personally, like, I'm not a big city person. I like to visit those places. But I always think ideally it's nice if your community is your community and you're able to do like all the, like, you should be able to be sustained by your community. And so in this facet, that's not happening. Right? Like, and so now I have to go venture to Riverside at the closest, maybe LA, make that drive, spend that time. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but the option should be there.
Facts. And what's crazy is that Redlands is known to be such an art place, you know, artistic space, right?
Yeah.
It's so known for that. So it's interesting. And you mentioned, and it got me thinking about, you know, you're like, maybe we should build a committee and try to force them to come. And it kind of makes me think about the thing that happened in Hollywood, where it's people's always like, we want a seat at the table. We want a seat at the table. When it's like, maybe you might have to just build our own table.
Yeah.
You know, you might have to just build your own table. Maybe you might just have to have shows in your backyard or something like that. You know what I mean?
We've talked about that. That's
you know,
true.
You might have to just do that, create your own space as opposed to like, let me in. We don't want you. And I interviewed Nathan Freeman, shout out to you, who's a resident here in Redlands. And he said Redlands is a NIMBY type of people.
Oh, for sure.
And for those who don't know that, that means not in my backyard. So basically, we like how it is, and we don't want things to change. So take that over there because we don't want that in my backyard. NIMBY, not in my backyard. So maybe you might have to put it in your backyard and start it here.
That's the bar right there.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Create your own table. Stop trying to feed off of someone else's table that doesn't want you to eat.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just curious because we had that conversation because I thought I had an opportunity for hip hop, and Adam was like, "I'm surprised they want hip hop here," and in the end, he was right. They really didn't. They completely ignored the conversation I had with them. You know, I wanted to get into more questions, but what I wanted to get into is that obviously you're married, right? And your wife's also a musician as well, right?
Yep.
So, how has that changed your music and your writing style? And on top of that, have you guys thought about making an album together? And even on top of that, I know it's multiple questions. Hopefully you can keep them all.
Yeah.
Does Adam.etal plan on making like a duo or a group album with somebody? You spoke about Noah James about 2 or 3 times in this one. So Noah James is the first person that comes to mind to have a duo album with. So all of that.
Yeah. So yes, my wife is also a musician. She's actually classically trained. And so she's in a band right now. Shouts out to Mellow Hearts. We don't really talk about doing a project together.
Okay.
right now we kind of like having our own things.
Stay over there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the only reason for that is like, you know, when you build a life with someone and you live with them, you're kind of with them all the time.
Facts.
And so,
Facts.
so music for both of us is also that space to be with yourself and create. Like, even though she's in a band, like, you know, she's still practicing with her headphones on and writing. But we definitely, like, on occasion we'll demo with each other. We like to practice covers together. Like, just sit around and like, I'll play guitar and she'll sing.
Cool.
We definitely workshop each other's work though.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's been a blessing because like I never really, it wasn't until like I left Black Cloud that I started to seek other voices for my own work.
Okay. Like other people's opinions?
Yeah, but even more than that, like really say like, all right, this is the demo I'm working on. Because even in Black Cloud, we were just producing so much music together that I guess maybe the feedback was embedded in it, and so you didn't really notice it. But after that, I kind of was like, all right, like I think it's tight, but so now like working with like also Cash Only from NCMG, has really like Cash Only, J Ty also from NCMG, and then Leslie. That's kind of like my team where I will, it can be a scratch voice memo, or it can be like a demo that I record at home, and I'm asking them, what do you think? What should I do?
Yeah.
Like that kind of input. And then with Leslie, like she'll write her songs, like the lyrics and stuff, and then she'll just bring them to me and like, what do you think? Like, how can we?
Dope.
And so it's dope to like, because it makes you think about your own songwriting, you know, and it makes you get in someone else's head too, because like, well, yeah, you asked for my advice on this, but I don't want to make this an Adam song. You know, it's still Leslie's voice and Leslie's ideas. Like, how can I just help you sharpen your own ideas and vice versa? And then as far as thoughts of doing like a project with anybody, I'm open to it.
Gotcha. Quick question. Has she influenced, because obviously every experience that we have with people, and especially, you know, she's your wife, she you know, she has a very important part in your life.
Yeah.
Have you seen a change in your music since you've been with her?
Oh, absolutely.
Gotcha.
Absolutely. Because like I said earlier, like a lot of Faim stuff, and it really, because like when I just started with Faim, I was kind of touching on some romantic stuff, but I was still very like just bars.
Gotcha.
On some bars. And then once I found like a little success with a song that was a little on the misogynistic end, I leaned into that.
Okay.
And then that became like a really baseline theme throughout a lot of Faim. But even towards the end, like this, so Manic Pixie Dreams was a project I put out in 2016. This is actually Leslie. This is the actual day we met.
Wow.
Yeah. Cash Only is still like my colleague with music, but at the time Cash was mixing, mastering, setting up the cover, and Cash said, hey, I think I have someone to be your Manic Pixie Dream girl for the cover.
Gotcha.
And it was Leslie.
Did they go to the same school?
Yes.
Okay, so you're talking about Cash dating?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And so
shout out to you, Cash.
Shout out Cash, man. Cash Only. Yeah, this project was veering away from all the stuff I was talking about, like the misogyny stuff. It was kind of searching for something romantic, but not like hypersexual.
Gotcha.
And then we met that day, and then, you know, we did some Starbucks meetups. I won't even call them dates.
Yeah.
We were just getting to know each other. I learned about her previous band and all of this. I showed her the manuscript for this before it was published, and she was like, I wasn't even trying to get into anything.
Yeah.
But then when I read your manuscript, I felt like I felt it. And that was kind of what was like, all right, let me give this guy a shot if he wants to. And then I asked her on a date a few months later, and then here we are now. But
so your manuscript was your wingman?
My manuscript was my wingman.
Woo! Yeah. You hear that, ladies and gentlemen? Gentlemen.
Yeah. So I feel like the way, like, of course she has been my muse, of course, like you're saying, but also to the point of my thoughts on gender, my thoughts on relationships, my thoughts on all of that, and how that manifests itself in the lyrics in New Adam.etal music is, I would attribute it to conversations that I have with her.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's super dope.
Yeah.
You know, man, that's awesome. And it's so cool to be able to bounce. For me personally, I've had this conversation with an actor, and I think it's important, especially people that are in the art world, to either be with someone who is in the art world or at least can understand the time that you need to like practice, rehearse, and do these things. Because if they don't, it's going to be a tumultuous, like you said, life.
For sure.
The understanding is not there.
The understanding is crucial.
Yeah.
And we definitely, I think we understand each other. But yeah, going back to the idea of like collab. Noah and I have done many songs together, but we've never done a project. I would definitely be open to it.
You hear that, Noah?
But I'm not really like I like the idea of et al. Because it's and everybody else, so it leaves it open for that. You know, like what I would like to do, but I just don't know. I don't know if people would be down, because not just necessarily ego, but
let's hear it,
because of like labor and exchange of labor. Is like for example, there's a song on the new project called No Worries. And when I wrote it, it was the first time I wrote a song where I thought of people and like, oh, I want them to do this part, and I want them to do this part, and I want this person to do this part. But when it came time to, like, I laid the demo down, but when it came time to think of like, all right, am I going to ask them? I just started thinking of like that. Like I didn't know how to approach the question to them without like, it seemed like an ego thing, like without having to say, featuring so-and-so. Like it just becomes this body of work because of the et al. But kind of like how on This Is America, you hear like ad-libs from Migos, and you hear ad-libs from, I think, Young Thug's on there too. Yeah. Like sprinkles of those voices. But it doesn't say featuring, that's a space that I would like to tap into at some point, but I just don't know how to do it yet. Like I said, with the idea, because I don't want to just like, because essentially, if I can't pay them, then it's like I'm just stealing your labor, and like you're not getting any.
I got you.
You know what I mean? But that kind of collaboration is something that I think is really cool. Like, but I think that has to happen organically. Like you would both have to be like, happen to be recording at the same space and be like, hey, I got this part. Do you want to come and like do dubs on it or something like that? And then it happens naturally like that. So I don't want to force it, but I would love to do the same thing for somebody.
Got you.
You know what I mean?
I think the vision that you have can't be organic because it's a vision. So you have to create the vision. That didn't come out organically. The Remyth, you had to force it into the will of what you wanted it to become. So to execute a vision, it has to be forced. Anything organic is going to have to be organic. So my opinion, I think throw the fear away, because going through fear makes all of us grow. So go through that fear. And I think your biggest concern about people like having all these features, why don't you just call it something else and then put like envisioned by Adam.etal. So don't call it Adam.etal featuring this. Call it like something else. Yeah. And then envisioned by Adam.etal. You know what I mean? And then you can put everyone else's name on it or whatever.
Yeah, that's tight.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That way it's not just, okay, it's my album featuring all these people. Yeah. It's like this is what it is, envisioned by me. Da, 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 da.
That's sick. I like that.
It's kind of like a collective I'm thinking about, Project Blown or whatever, et cetera, Living Legends. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind when you say that, because I'm about finding the solution to the problem, and I don't think that problem's that big. I think it can be easily fixed.
It's just a framing thing.
Yeah, it's framing things. And if, a lot of musicians, especially, you can, hey, I treat you some beer, some food.
That's true.
I could settle the problem right there. Hey, bro, get a couple of drinks, get some food for the recording session. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Simple as that can be solved.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm encouraging you to execute the vision.
Yeah.
Because our time here is short.
It's so true. Yeah. And I will say though, I do want to work with more people, because I think it's just healthy for community building.
Yeah.
And I think you can't just be, I feel like there's I don't know if this is still true, but I think there was sort of a romanticization at one point, maybe before the pandemic. There was a romanticization once we all had the tools to make music at home, of like just someone being in their bedroom, solitude, making their art, putting it out, and it blows up, and it's like, oh, I just made this in my bedroom. There was something like romantic about that. And I think the quarantine changed that, because that's not sustainable. It's cool to do it every once in a while. If you need to isolate yourself, I get it. But yeah, I think it's healthy and necessary for your mental well-being.
Yeah.
So I need to, so any artists, I don't know, IE or not, holler at me.
Boom. We'll put the link in the description for how to find him.
Yeah.
Even Noah James.
Let's go, Noah.
Man, you know him for over 20 years now, right?
Yeah, it's been some time.
Yeah, so I think that'd be a great album to have, especially if one of your first, just the history first told on the Empire podcast.
Oh yeah.
The history is amazing. And when you mentioned about, so art imitates life, and we do need each other because, what is it like? We experience something, and then we write about it, and then we write about it, and that becomes an experience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you understand what I mean when I say that?
Yeah.
I heard something very interesting, which was Steven Spielberg said he was listening to Earth, Wind, and Fire when he wanted to soundtrack for, I believe it was something of a kind, that space movie, something of a
Close Encounters.
Yeah, Steven Spielberg did that movie, right?
I think so.
I believe so. Hopefully it wasn't Stanley Kubrick, otherwise I'll mess with the whole story.
It might be
Stanley Kubrick.
It might be. I don't know. It's 50-50.
Yeah, I think it might be Stanley Kubrick, but Steven Spielberg said he was listening to no. Yeah, Earth, Wind, and Fire members were listening to a Steven Spielberg movie, or watching a Steven Spielberg movie about space, and then that's when they wrote the song "Every Man Has a Place in His Heart," fantasy. And then Steven Spielberg said when he wrote Jurassic Park, and to get the water to vibrate, he kind of used like I think he got the concept and idea from like using the bass from Earth, Wind, and Fire, something along those lines, right? And so it was just kind of like seeing like how art like influences each other in different fields, and like jumping. So I don't know where I'm going with this, but I was going somewhere with it. But basically, art influences life, life influences art,
and it becomes an experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Back and forth, right? So Adam, what current projects are you currently working on?
So I've been doing, with music, I've been doing song collections.
Okay.
And to me, song collections are different from EPs or albums, because it's just kind of fluid. It's just kind of like a flash of like this moment in your life, or this time period in your life, where there might be a recurring theme, or like whether that's lyrical or just beat wise. Like if I was in this mood and I was rapping over these beats or singing over these beats, whatever.
Yeah.
So I had, like, in between Faim and Adam.etal, I had a lot of stuff in the chamber ready. And so those were coming out as song collections or pieces of song collections. So like I kind of have a nice little like conveyor belt system where like there's stuff over here that's being built. There's stuff here that's already built, and there's stuff that's already built and like ready to go.
Gotcha.
And so I'm working on a music video for a song called Posies that was on this previous song collection. I'm working on the next song collection, meaning like there's some stuff over here and there's some stuff over here.
Okay.
I'm hoping to release a new song collection probably like spring. For poetry, I'm working on a new collection. Like I'm in the editing mode for the new collection.
Cool.
I just finished a novelette last night, actually, that I had been working on for like almost 10 years.
Gotcha.
And like it was inspired by this album called Put Your Back Into It by an artist named Perfume Genius.
Okay.
And I listened to the album yesterday because it was like the 10-year anniversary, and it just put me in that mode again. I said, it's time to finish this. So I went, did some edits, added a couple paragraphs. So I think it's ready to go out for submitting. So
beautiful.
And then just with the education stuff, working on the Hip Hop Study Summit, preparing that for next semester.
Gotcha. There's a question I wanted to ask, which is, are you in a different mindset or in the same mindset when you're writing poetry and writing rhymes?
Definitely different mindset.
Gotcha. So amazing. Yeah, I know we got to run. So I just got one question for you here, which is, Adam, let's say 100 years have passed, 200 years have passed, right? What would you like your legacy or your empire to have looked like once you're gone? Whether that's musically, educationally, or as a writer, poet.
First of all, I love the ending because it speaks to the podcast title. That's a beautiful conclusion. I would like my legacy to be authenticity and empathy. I would like to think that no matter what, I guess I'll just say format for lack of a more specific word, whatever format you witnessed me, whether that's in a friendship conversation, just my music, just a poem, just taking my class, that you learned how to be more you and how to be kinder.
I love it. And that's what you'd like your empire to be.
Yeah.
I love it. Man, Adam.etal, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Can you please tell everybody how they can find you, reach you, get your music, collab, et cetera, get the works?
Yes.
Please let them all know.
Thank you for having me, Antonio.
Of course. Thank you for allowing me into the home.
Of course.
Being on the podcast.
Let's see. So I'm on Instagram. It's Adam.etal. Twitter, Adam_etal. I'll say the website again is www.Adam.etal.soy. That's ADAMETAL.SOY. You can find the music on the major streaming services, Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal. You can find the book on my website, but you can also find it on any of the Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Inlandia Institute's website. I think it's on IndieBound. Mm-hmm. So you can buy it online from like most. If a bookstore has a digital website, you can buy it from there. For anybody interested in collaborating, podcasts, interviews, shows, like performances, you can hit me at adm@Adam.etal.soy. So adm@adam.etal.soy.
Boom. There it is, folks. Great interview. Thank you so much, Adam, for being on. Appreciate you, Playboy.
Yep.
Everybody, like the video, subscribe to the channel. You know the biz. Man, such a great interview. Other than that, everything will be in the description. My name is Antonio D. Miles. You know what it is. Put respect on the name.
Hey.
Other than that, we'll catch you guys in the next one. All right? Peace. I say it's my duty. Yeah. Is it my will? Yeah. To do what? Yeah. To do is right. I say Okay.
I apologize. That is my phone ringing.
Gotcha.
Should I go get it?
Yeah.
All right. I'll be
At
right.
least you can. Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Yeah. It's probably the wifey. You're like, where you at? Why didn't you pick up your texts? I've been texting you for 45 minutes. Why aren't you picking up?